Welcome to the Luke Jaeger Show. My guest today is Pierre Roland Blais, former stage manager of bands such as the Growlers, All Shall Perish, and also guitar player of bands such as Suffocate, Marklar, Destitute, and Zombie, and other projects we'll probably be talking about today as well, and also a barbecue enthusiast. Pierre, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Of course, dude. Thank you for having me on, man.
Can you kind of take us through your journey into music? What got you interested in playing guitar and being in a band, and even more so being in the business of stage management?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it started when I was really young. My dad has from as long as I could remember, has always had a 1940s swing band. It's a full 16-piece orchestra. So he's been doing that since forever. So I was always just around music, starting from a young age. I started with I was like 2 or 3 years old, but I picked up a tambourine, and that's, I think, the first time he realized like I could keep rhythm. And then he just kind of fostered that. And then, when I was younger, did like the public school music program. So I started with the violin first, and then did that for like 2 years or so. After that, I got into the alto sax. So I was playing alto saxophone for a few years. And then I started getting into Korn and Slipknot and all that stuff when I was younger. So then I wanted to start playing guitar. So that's kind of what got me into the music, is just my dad and being around it. And then, being that my older brother was like a skater, he was more into the punk stuff. So that was kind of cool. So he introduced me to all the 411 video magazine, like skate videos, and they would always have really cool music in there. I remember that was the first time I had heard Iron Maiden. So that was kind of where I was like, okay, I like this stuff. And, so he showed me that. And then I wanted a guitar, but he ended up getting one. So every time he would go out and skate, I would always sneak into his room and, start kind of messing around with the guitar. And then it just kind of stuck.
What was, what would you say was your first band that you started getting serious with as far as writing and just playing live?
The first band that I really got serious with was when I was in high school. I started a band called Death Grip, not to be confused with Death Grips. But I did that for a while, and I always wanted to throw shows. Like, I always just wanted to have parties. So I started a promotion company, like I guess production company called 909 Music Production. And so I would just throw backyard shows anywhere I could find a big backyard that would allow me to do it. So I threw a few in Chino and a few in Pomona. And then ultimately it just kind of snowballed from that. I had a festival every summer. I called it Blaze Fest. And I think the first one had about like 200, 300 people in like a little community park. It was in like a homeowners association park. And within I'm guessing the first 3 bands or so, it was kind of like that movie Project X, where the cops were circling with the helicopter. All the exits of the park were like surrounded by officers, and just a bunch of kids scrambling. So it was pretty cool, but that's definitely how I kind of got into like booking bands and just kind of wanted to be a part of it, I guess, So.
And so I guess how did things kind of spiral into like Suffocate and Zombie and all these projects you've been doing, these bands? I know you played live quite a bit as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, when that's all kind of full circle kind of things, like I listened to Suffocate in high school. I listened to All Shall Perish in high school. And the way that all came about was just being a fan always wanting to put myself there, make sure that I was, it's like if you want to do this kind of stuff, you have to put yourself in the position to be there. You can't just hope it's going to happen and then sit in your room and nobody knows who you are. You gotta physically be in these places around these people. And I guess the biggest thing is not to be like a fanboy, just to come at them like a real person, just tell them who you are and kind of why you're there, and hope for the best, I guess, but always show up, always be there, always be on point. So that's kind of how I guess it happened. Is I would just show up to, Suffocate shows when they started touring, and and then once I started actually, promoting shows and you know putting talent on, or like, building shows myself. I remember the first time I ever actually booked Suffocate after being a fan of them for so long. Then I booked them here in Chino in this little gutted out chicken coop. It was a literal chicken coop
Hmm.
that the owners gutted out and sound reinforced and put a really nice like PA system in there and AC and all this stuff. So when you got inside the chicken coop, it looked like a venue. It was a big venue. You could like backline and everything. There was like a drum riser and another section of the stage where locals could set up in front of a tour package. So it was pretty cool. And so I booked Suffocate there, and they actually have they have a, what's it called, like a promo shot of that era, with Tesoro and Taylor and Ricky Hoover and Bray. It was still on bass as well, where they're standing in front of palm trees, and that was a Jerry John photo that was taken here in Chino at the show that I booked for him. So this is an old photo that's still around online, and it was cool because from that, that show kind of didn't go over so well. The owner didn't understand how he was in charge of having to pay these bands,
Mm.
and he kind of skimped me. So I ended up setting it right, and right in time, because that was the tour where Suffocate, their van broke down in Texas. So the money that I sent them came through. They got their van fixed and they were able to go back and continue the rest of that tour. So that's how they met me. So it was like I was a fan, and then I booked them, and then so I went from fan to promoter, and then from a promoter, then I started actually working for All Shall Perish. And the first major tour that I did with All Shall Perish was a tour called Night of the Living Shred,
Mm.
and that was like After the Burial, Born of Osiris, Caliban from Germany. Who else was on that? Suffocate, obviously, and I think that was it. I think it was 5. Yeah, something like that. But it was a fun time. But you know, that's when Suffocate saw me and was like, "Oh, the guy that booked us in this chicken coop is now working for the headliner of this tour." So that's where I became friends. Like more than just a fan that they would see, at the Southern California shows. So then it went from, fan to promoter, then to friend, and then, ultimately in the long run, it would go to them giving me a call and saying, "Hey, can you play guitar on this tour?" And I ended up playing guitar on, it was the last full US and Canada tour that the band did, called the Thrill of the Kill tour. So it was just one of those full circle things where, I just kept being in that circle, and eventually it swooped me up. But yeah, so that's kind of how the whole Suffocate thing went. As far as Zombie though, while I was working for All Shall Perish, I had been a fan of Zombie since I was in high school as well. They were one of those local bands. I guess you could call it a local band, but they always seemed like a bigger band, you know. They were kind of Mr. Bungle. They were like the Mr. Bungle of San Bernardino.
Mm.
So that's kind of how I got into them. And then somebody that was in Death Grip, um, which then turned into Recurring Nightmare later on. That was a two-piece between myself and my buddy Christopher Morales, who played drums for Goliath and a hardcore band called Frostbite.
Mm.
But so he and I had a two-piece band, and we would just, you know, kind of find, just like how you and Sleep Terror are, you know, it's like really hard to find members that are on the same wavelength that you guys are on, you know.
Mm.
And so that's kind of the whole Recurring Nightmare thing for us, was like that was our recurring nightmares. We could never find people that could play with us in our area because nobody was really listening to the same kind of music we were at that time, or playing that kind of music at that time, you know. So we ended up finding a couple guys. They so happened to be brothers, the bassist and the singer, and we jammed with them. And their brother was the bassist for Zombie, so, you know, kind of small world thing. And so from that, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then that's kind of how that's how I befriended Zombie, is through their brothers, you know, the younger brothers.
Mm.
And then once I started touring with All Shall Perish, I wanted to make sure that Zombie was taken out of the IE. You know, it was taken out of just being a San Bernardino County band. You know, I wanted it to be a band that was recognized by other people in the metal industry and by people that they looked up to, you know. So I remember getting Toll, the song Toll, from their their first, I guess, like, everybody has that first record, you know, the first, like, yeah, we put something out, but then that second record's the one that kind of catches, you know.
Mm.
And that's the one that I typically call their first record, because it's the more polished version of that first record, you know. So their first quote unquote record, um, that's what I ended up showing Ben Oram and the other dudes from All Shall Perish, is like, hey, check this band out. And so we were, you know, Ben used to screen print shirts before the All Shall Perish tours in his garage. So I made sure that I was always playing Zombie. Oh, check out Zombie. This is Zombie. Listen to Zombie. And just kind of pecked at him, you know?
Mm.
And eventually, you know, Eddie then came over and was like, oh, what are you guys listening to? Oh, this is this band, you know, Pierre told us about, Zombie. And then it was just kind of one of those things that, like, hey, listen to this one. They sent me another track. Hey, check this one out. They sent me another track. And so once I was on tour with ASP, that's kind of where I started hearing things from their management, like, oh, you guys should do this or you guys should do that. And, you know, this would help if you guys did this for their stage show. So any information I was seeing being relayed to them through their management, I was kind of taking that same information and applying it to Zombie, you know, and like, hey, you guys should do this and you guys should do that. And I'm not telling you exactly what to do. I'm just giving you the blueprint, and you guys take that information and do what you're going to do with it. So that ended up helping them finally, um, I guess, be a little bit less of a quote unquote local band, you know, like a little less of a local mentality, you know, a little bit more polished, a little bit more refined. And yeah, I mean, it started working. They started getting bigger and bigger shows, and to the point to where they ended up opening for the Rockstar, not the Mayhem Festival, the other one. What was it? The Rockstar Uproar Festival and they ended up opening up the festival date for the year that Avenged Sevenfold and Seven Dust were on it. So, that was a big deal for sure, And from that, they just kept playing. They got the All Star tour, and just go go go. Until they built up their name a nice little bit. Pretty much after all that, I kind of started slowing down as far as touring with All Shall Perish, and then I was just kind of home, and I was bored, and they started looking for another guitar player, and I told them, yeah, I'll do it. So that was kind of the first, I guess, bigger band, that I started playing guitar with.
Mm.
And I mean, it was a great time. There's a lot of really talented musicians in that group. Um, our keyboard player and like composer, he does stuff for the Honest trailers on YouTube, and he does a lot of like composition for like TV and film and whatnot. I think he also has done a couple of the epic rap battles of history. Um, and then who else? I mean, everybody does something crazy. Like Aaron, the bassist, now works at a comic book shop in Las Vegas that I believe John from System of a Down owns. So now he's in there, smoozing with all the comic book people, and like, a lot of like the Frank Millers and all those dudes. Uh, the drummer, Adam, he's actually the drummer for the punk band The Dickies.
Mm.
And who else? Adolescence and like DI and a lot of punk bands, So yeah, that's kind of how that all went down, and it's just wild because everything's so interweaved that it's kind of hard to explain any one origin of anything, because there's all these little, side trails and little things that equate to the bigger picture of, being where it is that I am now. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
How were the also parish days? What were some of the ups and downs of those tours? I
I
mean,
mean,
business wise, I guess.
um, well, to be honest, the fact that those guys, took me serious enough to ever actually just take me out on tour in general is, to me, absolutely amazing.
Mm.
I remember back when I was in high school, before they were even signed to Amputated Vein. I remember finding 2 songs of theirs on mp3.com. That's where I used to get all my music from. And I just remember seeing All Shall Perish and like, oh, that's kind of a cool name. Let me check these songs out. So I downloaded them. And I think it was Deconstruction and Laid to Rest were the two. And
Mm.
I mean, just those 2 songs alone, I was like, I already knew, like, okay, these dudes are gonna they're gonna do something. I don't know if they're gonna ever be big, but they're gonna do something. Like, I like this band. I like the way they sound and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I just stuck with that, and then I ended up in the MySpace days. I started the All Shall Perish USA Street Team page,
Mm.
and so that was just me promoting any way I could, and anybody that followed that page, if they were serious enough, I would send certain people out on missions, like, hey, go flyer this area, or go spray paint something over here, or deface something over here in the name of All Shall Perish, and like
Mm.
just some 15-year-old kid that just liked the band and would send people out on missions to go do stuff, and just once they actually got signed and like started actually touring, I was still in high school and I didn't have my own car yet. But then I believe it was as soon as they got signed with Nuclear Blast and they really started touring, that's when I graduated. I went to their first few shows at like Showcase Theater and at Chain Reaction and stuff like that. And that's where I initially was like, hey, this is my first time I'm actually meeting you guys, but I'm the person that started your guys' USA Street Team page. And, you know, eventually I would love to work for you guys. And that's, I just came at them straight, you know, this is who I am and this is what I want to do for you guys. And then they told me, well, if you're serious, come to the show tomorrow and help us load in. And that's exactly what I did. I went to that second show. I helped them load in. They were surprised I showed up and was like, oh, okay, so you might be serious then. Cool. And then ever since then, I just made sure that I was always at those Southern California shows, you know, and just always showing face and always making sure that I was where I wanted to be. So, yeah. And then, you know, I was in college for stage management and like, you know, entertainment, just entertainment technology. So stage lighting and stage management, live sound, all that stuff. But they eventually, you know, hey, do you want to come out on a 2-week tour? You're not going to be able to sign up for school again. But I just jumped at the opportunity. I said, no problem. School's always going to be there. And if I'm going to school for stage management and you guys are offering me to be a stage manager, then let's go. Let's do it. And that's kind of, it was literally that, you know, it took a few years for it to actually happen, but I just stuck with it and it finally did. They finally asked me to go out. So I was officially out with them. And I mean, just like anything, you're out and everything's new. So everything's great. There's a lot of learning curve, you know, as far as, you know, what you can and can't do as whatever tier of, you know, band you are on that tour. So if you're opening the tour, you can't get the prime spots as far as, oh, this is where I want to put my stuff. And, you know, this is where I want to set up the drums and all that stuff, you know. But as the tours go on, you start learning. And I mean, that's really, I guess, the downfall is understanding certain things. And but then you learn and then it just makes you better, you know, or you actually pay attention to what's going on around you and you could learn a lot more. You ask questions, you know, hey, how do you guys do this or how do you guys do that? Not just to the band that you're working for, but, you know, to other bands, to other techs.
You said you went to school for some of this. How would you say going to school and learning it versus actually doing it hands on? Do you feel like, you know, sometimes you hear people say that when you actually do something, it kind of throws all the rules out of what you learned in the textbooks and things like that. Do you feel like that was one of those examples? Or, I mean, maybe some stuff could apply, but at the same time, maybe actually going through with it was a whole different scenario.
It's a lot like, to me, it's a lot like equating it to, I guess, learning how to play guitar by ear and then learning how to play guitar traditionally, like actually, you know, learning the notes and the theory behind it, and then kind of melding both of those together, you know. So there's definitely things you would only kind of pick up by ear initially, you know, like I guess the creativity of like, well, I don't know how to play this thing, so I have to try to make it sound cool, you know. But then eventually knowing like, okay, maybe I should learn how to play this thing a little bit better so I can speak to other musicians and speak to other people about it. And then once you learn that, then kind of meshing the two together to create your own style while being able to speak the language, I guess, you know, have the vernacular for that particular thing that you're trying to do, so I definitely feel like uh, being the stage manager for my dad's orchestra for so many years, like, obviously helped. I mean, I'm used to, dealing with 16 people, swing, like 16 swing band people. So not just setting up 5 dudes at a show, setting up 16 people, piano, drum riser, and then obviously all the music stands, and then having the chart books and having to be a librarian for the orchestra, and like there's a lot more into it than a lot of people think. So having had that experience as a child, um, that was like, it was kind of just an easy transition. Like, yeah, I play guitar. I know how to set up this amp. I know how to change the strings. I know how to do this, so this is no problem. This is way better than 16 people,
Yeah.
you know. So
How did the growlers come into your timeline there as far as doing that kind of work?
um that came way later on. So that was like, I mean, I was with All Shall Perish for a long time.
Mm.
That was that, and a lot of people knew that. A lot of people would. It's funny because we would go out on these tours, and those bands would tell people about me, and so I kind of became one of these people where I would just get random phone calls like, "Hey, do you want to work for this band?" And everybody knew, like, if it coincided with an All Shall Perish tour, no, I'm sorry. Well, it's going to pay you more. I don't care. Like, my loyalty was with the band that first took me out. You know, and some people would say that's a downfall, and that's fine. Like, for me, yeah, the money would have been nice, but at the same time, like, I was young. I didn't really have very many bills. I had rent and my cell phone and my Jeep. Everybody that knows me remembers my Jeep, you know, but those are the only things I really had to pay for. So me going out with All Shall Perish, yeah, I've definitely turned down other offers that would pay me more, but that's where I was. That's where my head was. Is like, these people gave you the opportunity to even do this stuff, and I'm gonna stick with them, because especially after so long, it wasn't just I'm working for this band. It was more like, this is like a brotherhood, and I always looked at those guys like being older brothers for me. They were they definitely had a huge influence on my life. Not just musically, but like personally. Like, every single one of those guys I could talk to about different aspects of my life, and vice versa. Sometimes it's always nice to have somebody on the road that's not a part of the entity itself, so that you can kind of vent, you know.
Mm.
So I always enjoyed being that person for whoever, and likewise, like, I enjoyed having somebody that I could talk to about certain things that were going on in my life, or just talk to everybody about it, And I mean, even with me and you, like, had that band not been a part of my life, I would have never met you, Luke. I
Mm.
would have no idea who you are. you know,
Yeah.
and that's what's crazy about it, is like, that's why I love music, and that's why I love all this stuff, is you get to meet really cool people. And I mean, fuck, I've known you for 15 years at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, you met me when I was a kid, and it's wild that we're still friends. But
Yeah. Music
it's
really
super
does
cool.
have that gift. I mean, um, business in general, or art, or traveling and stuff, but music especially. Yeah. I mean, touring and the amount of contact you make with different people, and it could even be like, even people you meet smaller tours like that. I remember like we stayed with your folks, and that was cool. Just like meeting your mom and like seeing your family, and then I remember All Shall Perish stayed here. I just still remember like Matt doing his laundry in our basement, and like uh, we had like my mom made us some eggs, and like it was funny though. And then Ben was saying how much he envies how we have a Starbucks next door and all this little things like that were funny. Like I can't believe stuff like that actually happened, 12 years ago or whatever. Or was it? Yeah, it was about 12 years. 13 years, but
yeah, I mean,
it's silly things like that. I kind of cherish like little memories like that. People kind of, personal stuff, you see how people live and who they are, and music kind of opens that door, and because you meet so many people, and but yeah, I mean, saying it's interesting. I mean, you never know, and it's like I guess like when you go out and you do your daily routine, you go to the grocery store or go to the gym or go to your job, you might not always meet people, and music you're kind of forced to. You have to work with people, or even like us. I think you were back in those days. You were kind of in the circle of the band, and we really there's no way we weren't going to cross paths. It was going to happen. So it was like, and it turned out to be a good thing. So, but
yeah,
but yeah, I guess one thing I was curious too is when you were working for like the Growlers, how would you say what would you say some of the key differences were between two different bands like that? Like a surf goth type of band versus a total deathcore type of situation. Was there working the stage, the different components involved what were the main contrasting things going on there?
So with that, to answer your question from earlier, because I realize now that I kind of went off on a little tangent, but the whole Growlers thing started because I started working at this venue in Costa Mesa called the Observatory, and every year the Growlers would do a festival called Beach Goth, and so I would stage manage inside the actual observatory stage, so the big stage inside the observatory itself, because then once it got big enough, then we would start putting a what is it, just a big ass stage outside in the parking lot, so we could fit more people. So the first year that Beach Goth started, it was I guess called Beach Goth Party or something like that, and that was in the small room, the Constellation room at the observatory. Then it went from that to the Constellation room and the observatory stage, and then it just got big. So then it was like the Constellation room, the observatory stage, and then a stage out in the parking lot.
Mm.
And every year I would always end up stage managing the middle stage, which is about 1,500 cap room. And it was always a shit show, because everybody's friends with the Growlers. All the bands that played are all friends with the Growlers, and they're all, they're these bands that are quote unquote professional bands, but they don't know I guess they don't know like the proper way to be a band, like a touring situation. It's like when you're on a tour package or you're on a festival show, it's like, hey, you guys are playing from this time to this time, and that's that. It's like if it goes off track, sorry, like that's your time. And so a lot of these bands would try to set their stuff up on stage instead of pre-setting all their stuff backstage and then just moving it on during changeover. So the show every year would always get pushed, and here's 2 minutes here, 4 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and then by the middle of the day, the show's almost an hour and a half behind or 2 hours behind. And that's where I come in. That's where I'm the bad guy, you know, like as a stage manager, like you can be cool, but at a certain point, it's like, you got to be the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And that's when I would just straight up say, sorry, you guys took way too long to set up. You have one song to play. You better make it a good song. And then, you know, that's that. So that's where I would put the show back on track. And it's like, out of this giant shit show, I would make sure that that stage was done on time, because at the end of the day, you have a bunch of people that are working the stage that need to go home. You know, they need to go home when it says it's time to go home. You know, and you can't push a show until 4 a.m. just because everybody wants to say, hey, oh, I'm friends with this band. Well, that's great. And I'm really happy that you got to play. I'm really happy that they picked your band to play. But right now, you need to play this song and get the fuck out of here. That's all I'm interested with, you know? And I think it was that kind of cutthroatness that eventually, you know, made me that guy. You know, they texted me one day and like, hey, do you want to work for the Growlers? And I said, yeah, sure. So, all right, you know, here, call this phone number. So I called the phone number, and they're like, hey, you know, we have you and a few other people on the list. Do you want to work for us? I was like, yeah. And I remember them asking for like a resume, like, and I was just like, look, I've worked for a lot of bands. Obviously, I'm not some nobody that, you know, doesn't know how to do this. I got your phone number for a reason. You either want me to work for you or you don't. I don't really have time to sit here and go through my whole history. And they were just like, all right, well, show up to this festival, you know. And then that was in San Bernardino, the same place where they do the Mayhem Festival. It's the same producer as well. So yeah, I showed up, and that was kind of like my audition date, you know, and got there early, made sure that I walked through everything, knew where load in was and all that stuff. And I knew everybody from the floor up, you know, like people that built the stage, people that did the audio, lighting, you know, blah, blah, blah. And walking through the festival with the management team, and you know, the manager is just like, oh, who's that? And I was like, oh, that's the producer for the festival. He's like, oh, how does he know you? Well, I was on the Mayhem Festival, and, you know, so he knows who I am. He was like, wow, okay. So, you know, just walking through, and he realized like everybody knows me because I've done pretty much every job, you know, outside of touring. I'm also a stagehand, you know, I also do lighting. I also do audio. I don't know the technical aspects of how to run that stuff, but I could set it all up, you know? So that's kind of where he realized like, okay, well, this guy knows what he's doing. So let's give him the chance. So I got them on that stage, and I did security for him because there was, you know, I think one person that jumped up on stage and wanted to hug the singer. And you know, it's kind of scary now to let that kind of stuff happen because you don't know who's going to do what. But got the guy, took him around the back, and put him back out in general, you know, in Gen Pop, and it was a good time. And after that, made sure all their stuff was loaded up. And once the show was all said and done, the van was loaded. They said, thank you very much. We'll see you on tour next week. And I was like, great. So, you know, the audition went well. And I remember that first tour, it was funny because I showed up and I'm loading the bus, and I looked at the bus, and it's the same bus that Born of Osiris was on that Night of the Living Shred tour, you know, the first major tour that I did with ASP. And it's like, wow, this thing, that's so crazy. What a small world, you know? So I didn't live on that bus before, but I definitely had been on that bus a few times. So to be back on that bus and to be living on that bus was kind of just a full circle moment as well, you know. And there's a lot of little full circle moments like that, so it's been pretty cool.
For anyone doing stage work like you did and management, what would be some key points that you would advise them in terms of just being prepared for that and being schooled on beforehand?
To be honest, the number one thing I think you should know how to do is um, you got to know how to micromanage your time. You know,
Mm.
down to the second. You have to know exactly what time the band goes on, exactly what time the band's going to come off, and or around the same. It might not be 100% the same every night because there's the human element. So it might go over a couple seconds or so, but you really have to be good with time because if you're not, then when you load in, for instance, so like a typical day for me would have been like we get to the venue, I go walk the venue floor, I go see where the exits are, I go check the stage and where load-in's going to be and where we're going to store deads. I talk to the production team at the venue, get everybody going on the same page, like, hey, this is I'm so and so, I'm the stage manager for so and so, here's kind of the rundown. It's going to be an easy day. Let's go to the trailer, then drop the trailer door, get everything in, start setting everything up, making sure everything works. Once it's all good and working, get the guys going, do the sound check. Once sound check's done, you know, make sure they're all good. And once they're good, then you got to start changing strings. If you don't know how to change strings like fast, then you start getting behind. And especially with this death metal stuff, most of the stuff we were doing is 7-string and 8-string. So, and then you have your mains and then you have your backups, and then you have to do everything, not every day, but the main guitars I would change every other show. So it'd be like change strings for the first show, play on those strings, next show play on those strings, the third show change the strings, because they're already dead. And so I guess the differences between the death metal scene and working for the Growlers was the fact that the Growlers never changed their strings.
Mm.
And I was like, are you sure? And they were like, yeah, we don't change our strings. You don't have to worry about it. And I was like, okay. And I mean, there was a couple of nights where they would pop a string, and it's like, well, that's kind of what happens when you don't change your strings on tour. There's different climates, there's different elevations, there's a lot of different factors that they go into the reasoning behind changing your strings so often, and I try to explain that, but until somebody breaks a string on tour in the middle of a solo, and then on top of that doesn't have a backup guitar,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you just got to learn the hard way, and so that was a learning point for them. Is like, hey, you got to have a backup guitar or you got to change your strings more often.
Definitely, yeah. Did they have
But
a lighting personnel or?
no, we just had, it was their manager and then their assistant tour manager. We had a merch guy, and then it was just me. So there was 4 of us on crew, and then the guys in the band. So it was actually kind of cool because the first tour that I did with them, I was sitting across from the percussionist because they had a drummer and then they had a percussionist. And I never met any of them before other than, at the rehearsal or the audition date. But something about the percussionist kind of struck funny with me, and it's kind of weird, but he ended up smiling like a certain way, kind of like a smirk. And it was in that smirk that I was like, hey, were you in a Mr. Bungle music video? And he was like, yeah, that was me. And I was like, I knew it. It was for Pink Cigarette. He was the main actor of Pink Cigarette, the unofficial official music video for Mr. Bungle. And he was like, yeah, that was a high school thing that me and my buddies did, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And so I was nerding out about that with him. And the other guys in the band were like, "What are you guys talking about?" And I was like, "Dude, do you guys don't know who Bungle is?" Like, and so, it's a lot of little things like that that were kind of cool with meeting a different audience. Like the death metal audience, you obviously know what you're gonna get as far as like crowd wise. You know that you're gonna get some rowdy stuff, but I had never thought that I would see a rowdy crowd for like a surf beach goth band. Like there'd be like a slow song, but there'd be a mosh pit going. It was like so random, but it was kind of cool to see a whole different spectrum of fan, and playing different venues, because there was a lot of venues that, I mean, I've been on tour with a lot of metal bands, and there's a lot of venues that they have not played,
Yeah.
and probably will never play, to be honest, because it's really hard in the metal scene to sell that many tickets, to some of these places. And it's pretty amazing that the Growlers would sell the show out and it's just them, it's literally an evening with the Growlers. And it's like some nights would be two shows, like we'll just like, okay, we're going to set up in the city and then go away and come back and play tomorrow night. And both shows are sold out. And it's kind of cool to be able to be in the same city for longer than 6 hours and actually get to go explore. So it was definitely a different crowd and a different vibe. The vibe was a little less machine like. It was very, very natural. It was pretty cool. It was definitely really cool. And I'm very fortunate to have had that opportunity. But like I said, all that stems back from All Shall Perish, because even the venues around here, nobody would give me an opportunity to work for the venue until I went out on tour. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, you've been on tour and you work for bands, so then yeah, we'll give you an opportunity to work at this venue. So then just like that, it's like nobody would give me a job, and then everybody would be like, yeah, no problem, because you've clearly done it. So we trust you around all this equipment.
Yeah, you just getting your foot in the door and meeting people within that, because if they don't know who you are and they don't see that you've kind of earned your stripes, or just like, get the hell out of here, because there's probably a lot of people who want that job, but once they see and it's not even like a resume, like, even though you're saying like the Growlers were asking for that, but obviously in a more professional situation, they're probably going to reach out that far. But, I'm sure the venues, if they've seen your work ethic, hands on, they're going to be like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, for sure.
What have you, I know that I remember seeing one of the shows on that tour with the Growlers, but it's been a few years. What have you been doing since, personally, musically, some of your projects that you've been most, involved with?
Since the Growlers and since All Shall Perish, and then obviously, since Suffocate, I ended up playing guitar for a band called Destitute out of Montclair, California, and try to artist develop them. Like that's kind of what I've been trying to do too, is help bands that I feel should have a bigger following than what they do. Because I mean, my ear's kind of proven to myself that I know what sounds good. I know what's marketable, and I know what, uh, and I know people hate this, but I know what a good product is, as far as music. And I know people do not like their music being called a product, but that's exactly what it is, and I know what a good product sounds like, you know. And even if it's not 100% dialed in, like I know the potential of it. So I've been helping a lot of bands as much as I can develop not just their stage presence and their imagery, but you know, just helping them kind of usher a different uh, way of thinking about their show, you know, and creating a show in general, like helping bands create shows, not just hey, you know, we have all these songs. Like that's great that you have those songs, and yeah, those songs are great, and they sound great. Everything's great, 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 great. But if you don't have a show, to be honest, nobody fucking cares. You know, you don't want a bunch of songs start stops. You know, like they could be great songs, but if the show's constantly stopping, you're stopping that momentum, you're stopping the vibe, you're stopping everything. You know, what to tune? Cool. You know, what I typically do is, you know, you maybe do one song as an intro just to get people going, and then maybe stop to tune just to make sure everything's cool, and then do like 2 to 3 songs and then stop, and while you're tuning up again, have the person saying, hey, that we are this band and blah blah blah, you know, just kind of helping people do that, you know, create the show. So I did that for a band called Destitute, which we ended up playing the very last Decapitated show in America uh before they got arrested. Um, so we played with Decapitated and Thy Art is Murder and Fallujah on that tour. Ghostbath was also on there. But you know, then shortly thereafter, you know, I stopped working with them. I started working with this other band with Chris Simmons from Suffocate as well, and that didn't really work out. Um, and then what else did I do? Just a couple bands here and there. Excuse me. That I just been kind of trying to do stuff, you know, just finding a good product and trying to help it, you know, flourish if possible. And now I have a new project with Mark Munoz. He was one of Christopher Story's students, and Anoop Sastry is going to be on drums, and Mike Semeski is going to be on vocals. I'm helping with like synth textures and kind of arrangements, and uh, helping with the what's the word, the the artistic vision, I guess, you know, like as far as push, you know, this is what the font should look like, or this is what the album cover should look like, stuff like that, you know. Creative, I guess, creative director. um but Mark Munoz is the overall like seer of that, you know. But it's like I'm helping him put his vision to what he wants it to be, you know. So Francesco Ardosato from All Shall Perish, Light the Torch, Devil You Know, he's produced the record. And then I'm not 100% sure who mixed and mastered it, but I know that it's the same guy that did the Light the Torch record. So yeah, I mean, Mark's got a nice little powerhouse of people, you know, and we're just getting everything ready. And I mean, it's been a long process, you know. It's been like a good 4 to 5 years, but you know, I told him, if you're gonna do something right, it's got to take time. It's got to sound good. It's got to look right. It's got to be a complete package before you just throw it out there. Because especially with people's attention spans now, if it's not a full package and you're ready to go make money, I mean, you have a good 4 to 6 month window now, you know, on music. I feel like to go try to make some money on it before it just gets buried by the internet, you know.
Yeah, I hear you.
So yeah, I mean, that's what we're working on now. And outside of that, I mean, in my personal life, I have my baby, I have my family. So I'm happy to be home now. I don't feel like I have to be out on tour anymore. It's like now I'm financially stable here at home doing stuff within the music spectrum, and I could spend more time with my kids.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, I've been doing a lot of barbecuing lately, just kind of got into that out of nowhere. Uh,
Yeah, I noticed that. I'm jealous of your Traeger grill. I wish I had that in like a backyard for that. I live in an apartment, so I'm like, man, I'd love to have something like that, like in a
do you
backyard.
have do you have like a little patio?
I have a neighbor downstairs who has a barbecue, and he's an idiot because he lights it up, and it's one of those old school crappy barbecues that, and I have to remember like in the summer to close my windows because it like blows in our apartment.
Uh,
And he has it like right under a tree too. It's like there's like, it's like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like
that's awesome.
but yeah, it's like, but it's not. Yours looks like more modern, like.
Yeah, mine is it's a Traeger Ironwood 885. So that's kind of like, I mean, call it what you will. I know there's a lot of traditional offset smoker guys that are like, "Oh, that's an easy bake oven." Well, guess what? It is. But my food is going to come out perfect every single time, and I don't have to sit right by my smoker for, 8 hours, 12 hours or whatever to smoke a brisket. I just put it on there, I put the meat probe in, and I check it out on my phone every once in a while.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it is an easy bake oven, but it's I don't care as long as it tastes good, as long as it gets cooked. That's that's all that matters to me.
Do you have to check the temps with those little needle things,
It's
or you
all
just
it's
kind of look at the
literally
texture or
it's
the color?
literally all on my phone.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so the meat probe, sends information to my app.
Hmm.
So if the meat, hits the internal temperature that I want it at, then and then the next step is like, oh, go turn the barbecue's temperature up. Then I just turn it up on my phone until the internal temperature reaches the next point, and then after that, then that's all. It's super easy. I made my turkey this year on it. And like my family, they don't like the breast meat typically because it's usually really dry, but I
Hmm.
I gave everybody a piece of that, and they were just like, "Wow, this is amazing." I mean, I ended up selling one to my brother-in-law just based off of him eating the turkey this year. He was just like, "Yep, this is what I want."
How
So,
do you like pre-season some of this stuff, or you soak it in anything, or you
oh
do
yeah,
that
I
more in the
mean,
process of the cooking of it?
no, like for the turkey this year, I brined it.
Hmm.
It was a 24-hour brine. So, yeah, that was one, but I mean, typically I just rub the meat down with whatever seasoning I'm using. I let it sit in the fridge for a while, and then you know go chuck it on the grill, and then check everything out on my phone. It's super easy.
Wait, so what? Sorry if I missed this, but the app is called. Is it something to do with Traeger, or is it?
Yeah, it's just Traeger. It's
Oh
Traeger's
yeah,
app. So you download the Traeger app, and then I mean,
that's
you could
crazy.
literally type in whatever you want to cook, and it tells you all the temperatures that you should set it at. It tells you the internal temperature of your what your meat should be at. I mean,
Hmm.
it's it's super awesome because a lot of people are like, "Well, I'm not going to pay for a Traeger." That's fine, but if you download the Traeger app, you can still utilize all that information
Hmm.
on a charcoal grill. It's
Yeah.
all the same stuff. So you can do it on whatever grill you want. It's just if you have a Traeger, it obviously does it for you. Everything's automated on it. So
What's your
it's
favorite thing lately? I know you said brisket. I'm a big brisket fan. I actually got turned on to that on nachos. I used to like. ordering brisket nachos, it's so good, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me personally, I like doing spatchcock chickens.
Mm,
So I'll like, cut the spine out and then press it down so that the body's flayed open.
mm,
And so it cooks a little bit more evenly. It cooks a little faster. And I mean, I like that one because I like chicken, but two, it's also a good plate. Like I could
mm,
sell half chicken and, a side salad with some mashed potatoes or something for a reasonable price. You go to, Lucille's or some, Wood Ranch or some sort of smoke style smokehouse, and they're going to charge you like 30-40 bucks for the same thing I charge, and it's
Ha-
like, so it's just a cool little thing, that I do. It's small plates here and there, but
mm,
it's not like I'm still a hobbyist, I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm smoking this and I have to smoke all this so that these people, so I could fill these orders and I got so many orders. No, it's like whenever I feel like doing it, I'll do it. I'll post about it. Hey, if you guys want a plate, then, hit me up in the direct message on Instagram and I could sell you a plate. You come pick it up, or I could drop it off, whatever.
mm.
But it's not like every single week. It's kind of, when I'm feeling like doing it. So it's still fun. It's not work yet.
Yeah, it could turn into that though.
Oh yeah,
You have.
quickly too.
How do you? Or you do that mostly through your Instagram? Because I know your Instagram handle Roland Blais Barbecue. So it's ROLLNBLAZE Barbecue.
BBQ. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so that's. Do you have another handle for that somewhere else, or is that just kind of on Instagram right now?
No, it's just on Instagram. It's all Instagram based.
Mostly local, I guess, right? Because you're in Chino, so Chino Hills, so people come pick it up, and
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, if it's friends that live in Orange County, then, it gives me a reason to go down there and say hi and here's some food, guys.
yeah.
But
No, I saw the pictures. It looks so good. I wish I'm gonna have to stop there sometime in the summer, man, or just
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's always summer there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
My parents grew up in Chino, and so I know it's pretty warm there most of the year.
Yeah, I mean, even today it was raining this morning and then it heated up to like, 75.
Ah, Jesus. Yeah, it's so cold here, dude. Like Seattle's we had the wettest November in all history of Seattle last month.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's you know, I like the warm climate, but it's like I don't know, man. So there's sometimes I've just been like I'll take a shower, in Southern California, and I'll get out and I'm still sweating. Like it's like, God damn. It's like I kind of like cold, but I don't like that sideways rain and like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I hate precipitation, but I especially that like sideways. Oh my God, it's so painful. you know. Um, Can we tag any of your sites here? Roland Blais Barbecue. We already mentioned on Instagram. I know some of your bands are active at the time, but like the Jambi official JAHMBI underscore official on Instagram. You have a YouTube that's Pierre Blais, Pierre, and then your uh, last name Blais.
Yeah.
Let's see, what am I missing here? So
And
many.
then just my Instagram is just my full name at Pierre Roland Blaze. So
Yeah.
but Roland in the way that you spell it as like the piano company, ROLAND.
Yeah, yeah. I always I always kind of thought of that. I think that earlier in the show, I had to edit the intro because I said Roland first, because I'm so obsessed with that name. Because it's like, yeah. So,
Because your module for all those years.
yeah, I think I did have a Roland keyboard once. I used to
Well,
play piano and
wasn't that thing on your guitar the synth?
yeah,
That was a Roland, right?
GK3. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't. I haven't used it much lately, just because I only do recordings sometimes, sometimes I'll use it for recording, but live, it's been a few years,
Yeah.
Um,
Well, dude, outside of me, but kind of back on you. If you ever want to play, in Southern California, just let me know. We'll get Sleep Terror going over at Chain Reaction.
that would be awesome, man. I mean, we definitely want to go back out, and I was actually I was trying to do something for February, March, and it's just hard because I don't have to say
Yeah.
it, but
Right. Yeah. No, I
this
definitely get
whole
it, man. But
yeah, we don't
but
know like what's gonna go.
yeah, but we kind of do. So if you want to book something, just let's get it
Is
going.
that are you working there now or?
Yeah, I work at Chain Reaction
Oh
part
wow.
time. So whenever time permits, I'll go in
Yeah.
and do some stuff.
The last time I was there, I saw God dang, 2000. I saw Dillinger Escape
Shit.
Plan. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like 18 at the time. Ben, the guitar player, jumped in and hit me with his guitar in my face. That was a fun show.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I remember I wanted to go there. I went to NAM and I had a friend, Mark Munoz. It's the other Mark Munoz.
Yeah.
And he invited me there, and I said, "Do they have a bar?" And he said, "No."
But we do now.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, there's a bar there now. It's not a full
Yeah,
service bar. They just serve beer, but
that's
it's
good. That's good.
yeah. So
Beer's
yeah.
good, man. Yeah, you don't need the liquor, man. It's like,
Yeah, and it's cool too because a friend of the venue actually brews a lot of the beer for them, so it's super fresh beer.
yeah,
You know, it's
that's
like
so cool.
canned down the street, and like it's within a couple hours old.
Hmm.
So
Well, that's good. I mean, next time we play in LA, then you know, like I said, I was trying to shoot for early spring, late winter, but
yeah, I mean we'll talk about that.
yeah.
So
Cool, Pierre. It's cool to see you, man. And I wish you the best with the barbecue stuff. I think that's really interesting. I'm kind of becoming more of a foodie now. Just being I started doing like the keto kind of stuff, and not with the I still indulge in a little bit of like beer and stuff, but I like barbecue and cooking and seasoning, and so that's something I'd love to talk to you about maybe in another episode. But thanks for kind of dispelling some of your past with your tour managing and stage management and all your projects. And yeah, it's really, really cool to have you on, man.
yeah, it was really cool to be here. And kind of talk about the lineage. But it's kind of hard to ever just stay on track because it's just kind of all over the place. If it wasn't for one thing, then it wouldn't be for this thing. It's kind of butterfly effect, with everything that I do. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a lot of people know that too, and like podcasts, like, you're my 11th episode, I believe. And we never know what we're going to talk. I mean, I have obviously the staples of what I want to talk about, but it can just go anywhere in any direction.
yeah,
Everybody's history and their stories are so unique. And so, nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's probably interestingly, stuff that comes out that I didn't even anticipate that would come out of a story, um, like actually like what you were bringing up about like uh timing, like I was thinking of like Guns N' Roses, like all those years of like them playing 3 hours late, you know, like what was their stage manager going through?
You know, their stage manager was probably shitting bricks.
Yeah, you know, but I didn't really even think of that topic, and you brought it up. So it's kind of like I like doing these interviews, you know, because I like just talking to people and just asking something, and it could turn into something else. So it's all good, you know. But yeah, you know.
Oh yeah, dude.
All right, man. It's good to see you again. Thanks so much for being on the show. Pierre Roland Blais, everybody. Please check out his sites and be on the lookout. Man, he's a talented guy and he's a
Thank
great
you.
guy. And,
That
all
means
right,
a lot
buddy.
coming from you, dude. Thank you.
Maybe I'll have you on again, man. We'll see you again, you know.
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right, man.
All right, bro.
Take care.
Much love.